Just a quick review as we're going to pick up. I'm sure Erwin is going to join us momentarily, right? And Ted hopefully as well. It is, I know, a little pressure on us, those that have been going to Minyan. Monday, particularly with Torah reading and long tachanan and everything, right? So if we need to adjust the time, we can do so. So I want to come back to the fact that our discussion then was, do you go ahead and proceed with this circumcision or not? If you proceed with it, then it's a valid circumcision, it would appear, even if the child has not survived 30 days. And if not, the attitude was, we said, similar to it being a stillborn and therefore nothing more than a piece of meat, if you will. Okay? And the Gemara, when we finished up, we saw it said as follows: Amar Bere de Ravina, Ana Varav Nechume Bar Zoharya, Tirgamina Mimhal Hachinami Mahalinamle. The two of them explained, we said, that we would proceed in any case by performing circumcision. Lo nitzracha ele lemachshirei mila, Baliba the Rabbi Eliezer. And the prohibition, okay, of carrying it out only really applied to those preparations, okay, which was according to the view of Rabbi Eliezer, that said that even preparations for Mila could be done on Shabbat. So that's where we sort of left off yesterday, right? Okay, so picking up there, Amar Abai says Abai Ketanai, that this was based on a machloket Tanaim. Okay, V'chi yamut min habehema. Okay, says the text, right? The Torah. Right, v'chi yamut min habehema asher hi lachem le'achla, and if any beast of which ye may eat die. And the rest of the pasuk is that one that touches the carcass shall be unclean until the evening. Lahavi ben shmona she'en shchitato mitaharato, says the Abai. This means that an 8-month-old animal, okay, that has shechted, the shechita doesn't render it clean. Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar b'Rabbi Shimon omrim, shchitato mitaharato, and the two of them disagree and say, this is the machloket Tanaim, that the shechita does render it clean. So the Gemara asks, okay, morning, Ted. Mai, what are we talking about? Lav b'hakamiflagei, aren't they arguing about the following? Damar savar chayhu, umar savar metu, that one would consider an 8-month-old animal as a living item, and therefore the shechita would render it tahor, but the others would consider an 8-month-old animal more like a stillborn, and therefore just a dead, so to speak, piece of meat, and it doesn't, shechita does not render it tahor. And so the Gemara sees Rava responding to Abai. Amar Rava, Ihachi adamiflagela inyan tuma v'tahara. If that's the case, he says, Rava, why then are they arguing about tuma and tahara? Liflagela inyan achila. This is let them really make their argument on whether this piece of meat is edible, whether it can be consumed for proper eating. If you don't consider it a valid shechita on an 8-month-old stillborn, that should be the issue. Ela dekuli alma metu, but rather everyone is of the opinion. Okay, Ted, you with us? Okay, that the 8-month-old animal is a stillborn, a dead animal. But Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Yehuda, but Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Elazar, but Rabbi Shimon, Savre Ketrefa. And they hold that animal is a trefa. Trefa, lav afalgav demetahi, shchita metaharta. So the Gemara asks, regarding here, this situation, does, even though it might be considered a trefa, okay, wouldn't the shechita still render it clean? Hachanami here too, lo shana. There's no difference, says the Gemara. Rabbanan, and the rabbis hold, lo dami v'trefa, that it's not similar to a trefa. Why? Trefa haitala sha'ata kosher, because at least an animal that's now considered a trefa, at some point in time, it was considered a valid animal. Between the time that it was born and that it became a time that something happened to it to render it treif, it was therefore a kosher animal. Hi, lo haitala sha'at kosher, but an 8-month-old animal born at that time, l'chadchila, from its very birth, would not be considered having a time of being valid. Okay? V'chitema, and if you want to say trefa mi beten, that the 8-month-old animal is unfit, okay, or unkosher, however we want to phrase it, from birth, mai ikala meimar, what then are you going to say? Okay, hatam yesh b'mina shchita. Okay, we could say that there are other varieties of animals in that same category, so to speak, that are viable and could be good for slaughter. Haka, but here in the case of a stillborn animal, ein b'mina shchita, there is no viability to its being slaughtered as a kosher animal. Okay. Now we get to a new item. Bailahu. So the sages questioned and asked the following: Mi pligi Rabbanan alei de Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel? Olo, do the rabbis disagree with Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel? Okay, in terms of what we saw the discussion on the bottom of the previous page, or not? Im timtzel omar pligi, if you want to say that they do argue with him, okay, then a further question, halakha kamoto and halakha kamoto. Is the law like him or is the law not like him? Shashma, and we listen to the following braita. Egel shenolad b'yom tov. Okay, if we have a calf born on the holiday, okay, shochtin oto b'yom tov. We may slaughter it on Yom Tov. Hacha b'mai yaskinan. Okay, what are we talking about? Dakin le begove shakalu lo chadshav. And we're establishing that the situation here is that we know that the months of its being inside, in other words, the months of the gestation in the mother animal were completed and the animal satisfied or completed all of its gestation period. Okay, and therefore it's a viable animal. It wasn't a stillborn. Okay, right? Tashma, right? And another brighter. Vishavin, and they agree. She'im noladho, okay, right? That if it was born, umumo imo, okay, and there is a mum, right, with it. So this is Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon together. When it says shavin, okay, that if it's born with a mum, shezeh min hamuchan, okay, that in that particular case, okay, it is muchan, okay, which we're basically saying at that point is that, okay, it has this blemish and it is viable to be eaten on the day of its birth. Achanami, shekalu lo chodashav. That here too we say that it finished all its months, its gestation period. Tashma, listen to another brighter. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Halachak Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, that the law is like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, okay, which therefore tells us, Halacha miklal de plige shma mina. From this we learn that indeed the rabbis must have disagreed with Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel on this situation. Okay, now, Amar Abaye. Abaye continues, another example. Okay, so we at this point, just quickly to summarize and then pick up. It's very clear that they were trying to draw the parallel, okay, between proceeding with the Brit Milah of an infant born in the 8th month, okay, or not. Because we said that their attitude back then was that most of the time, those were not going to be viable births, and the youngster would not survive for more than a month. And should you therefore go ahead and do the Brit Milah, and certainly one wouldn't do the Brit Milah on Shabbat. Okay, so that's how we come back to that topic. Now, what about other situations? Amar Abaye, nafal min hagag, o achlo ari, divrei hakol chayhu. Okay, Abaye suggests the following. He says, say you have a situation where it fell from a roof or it was devoured by a lion. Clearly that animal had a shot kosher. It had been viable for some time, okay? Now, what happens, right? So it says the Gemara, Divrei hakol chayhu. Ki pligi, where do they disagree? Shafihek ummate. A situation where the item, okay, an animal, but we could apply it to a child as well, where they yawned, so to speak, and died. In other words, the death occurred almost immediately after the birth. It died within the 30 days, okay? And therefore, do we say that that is viability in terms of the child? Mar savar chayhu, one master holds that it was a living being. Umar savar metu, and the other holds that it is not. Okay, right? Lamai nafkamina. What's the difference? Liftor min hayibum. Okay, the difference whether you consider that child viable or not would be to exempt the mother, okay, of the child from being required to be involved in Yibum if this child was born and the father was no longer in existence. If you consider it a viable child, then the woman is exempt from Yibum. If you don't consider it a viable child, then there is still the obligation on the mother, okay, to go through Yibum or Chalitza. Okay? Nafal min hagag achlo ari, divrei hakol chayhu. We said already that if it fell from the roof or was devoured by a lion, okay, that was be viable. Okay, now okay, and this is more, remember, in terms of the animal situation as a parallel. V'harav Papa v'Rav Huna, b'rei the Rav Yehoshua. And we have this incident where Rav Papa and Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yehoshua, iklahu lebei b'rei the Rav Idi bar Avin. And they came and visited the house of Rav Idi bar Avin. Va'aviv laho igla tlilta. And he made for them a third-year calf. Okay, remember we've learned already that that was a third-born calf, right? Right? The nicest choice of meat, so to speak. And what happened? Biyamama dishiva. But they slaughtered it and they prepared it during the day of its seventh day from its birth. Va'amrele, and they said to him, itarchitu le ad laorta, if you had delayed and waited till nightfall, okay, hava achlinan mine, we would have eaten from it. Hashta lo achlinan mine, now we cannot eat from it. Ella keshafiheg umeit. Okay, but when we say that there was a situation when it yawns and dies, in other words, even if it has a short period of viability, divrei hakol metu, all are in agreement that it is non-viable, right? Ki plige, where do they disagree? B'nafal min hagag v'achlu aryeh. If the animal were to fall from the roof or be eaten by a lion, mar savar metu, one master considers it dead, like a non-viable. Mar savar chayhu, and one master considers it viable. Right? Now, B'rei the Rav Dimi, we have a new statement, okay, of the following. The son of Rav Dimi bar Yosef, it yalid le hahu yanuka, had a child born to him. Now, begot latin yomin shchiv, and in the context of 30 days, the child died. Yativ, commit abil iluhea, okay, and he sat and mourned for him. Amar le avuha, his father said to him, in other words, the grandfather of the deceased child said to the father, Tsavrunita kibait lumechal. He said to him, are you mourning because basically you want to partake in the meal, special foods, after a meal of mourning, a meal of condolence? Amarle, he said to him, the Kimli Be Shekalu Lo Chadashav. It's aware to me, I know for certain that it completed its months of gestation, all of its pregnancy.
Rabbi?
In other words, yes.
Okay, one question. It said that he sat and mourned for it. wouldn't you say if he did mourning that would imply a sitting position? That would be something. Why do they say that,
Why use the phrase
yeah,
sitting particularly?
why say he sat and mourned for it?
Okay, I understood that, Bob, that, there are different practices for sitting. Okay, if you Ashkenazim generally sit on low stools. Sephardim sometimes sit on a cushion or even on the floor. So I understood that from here that, in other words, he actually sort of sat down on the ground, would put dirt on his head, mourn, things like that.
Okay.
Right. Amar,
Okay.
So he said to him, I know for certain that she completed the pregnancy. In other words, he was not a stillborn, and that's why I'm mourning for him. Okay. So another incident. Rav Ashi Ikle Bey Rav Kahana. Rav Ashi came to the house of Rav Kahana, and the Gemara tells us, Itra Bey Milta, the same mishap, so to speak, befell him. The same thing happened to him. Bego Tlatin Yomi, during 30 days. In other words, he also Rav Kahana had a child that died within 30 days. Rav Ashi now, so to speak, Chazye Diati V'Kamit Abil Iluyai. I saw that he sat and mourned for him. Amarle, and I said to him, Lo Savala Le Mar Lahada Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Okay, do not you as master hold like Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, Halacha Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, that the law is like Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, implying that unless there's clearly 30 days, it was not viable, and therefore there would not be a requirement to mourn. Okay, his answer, Amarle, Kimli begoylai shakalu lo chadashav. Again, his response was, I know for certain that it's months. In other words, it completed the pregnancy, he was born, and therefore, okay, and therefore it was a viable birth. Okay. Itmar. We now say it was stated as follows. Mate betoch shloshim. If the infant died, okay, within 30 days, va'amda, and here we say, if it's less than 30 days, it's considered like a stillborn. Venit kaj sha. Okay, and let's say that woman who gave birth, okay, now immediately became engaged. Okay, so the question that we're seeing here is, here's this woman who had a birth within 30 days. It's questionable whether we're going to say that's a valid birth or not. Okay, and therefore it comes back to this question of Yibum and Chalitza. Okay, Amar Ravina Nishmei de Rava, says Ravina in the name of Rava. Okay, in other words, is she really a childless widow and has to have Yibum or not? Amar Ravina Nishmei de Rava, as we flip over, Im Eshet Yisrael, were it that she were to be engaged, let's say, to the wife, to a gentleman who was an Israelite, choletzet, we say that she still must perform chalitza. Okay? Im eshet kohen he, if this engagement, okay, is to somebody who is a kohen, eina choletzet. Okay? She does not perform chalitza. Okay? In other words, if it's the second husband is an Israelite, she performs chalitza, and then that removes any question of the yibum situation, because there was a suffix whether the embryo was valid or not, okay? And therefore, then that Israelite can go back again and become engaged to her and marry her. But if the potential second husband was a Kohen, once she performs chalitza, she's no longer eligible for him. Okay? So the following comes as a response. V'Rav Sharavya mishmei derava amar echad zo ve'echad zo choletzet. His view is that regardless of whether the second husband is a Kohen or a Israelite, she needs to go through chalitza. Amar le Ravina le Rav Shravya. Okay, he says to him, Ba'orta, in the evening, Amar Rava Hachi. Rava said, as you had indicated. L'tzafra, in the morning, Hadarbe. He recanted it. He retracted that basically that view, that she need not perform chalitza if the second husband was Kohen, whom was Makadesher. Okay? Now, let's go on. Amar le Shuri Tuha. Okay? So, Rav Shravya's response is, you would permit her? In other words, Yehei Ra'ava de Tashru Tarba. He was not happy with Ravina's answer, okay, and basically reprimanded him by saying, you would permit her to eat forbidden fat. In other words, implying that because of the Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel's example, we would say that embryo, that fetus, was not viable, and regardless of whoever it is, she would need to do chalitza. Okay. Coming back to finish now, Rabbi Yehuda Matir, Rabbi Yehuda permits. Rav Shizbi, Amar Rav Shizbi, Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Shizbi says in the name of Rav Chisda as follows: Lo L'kol Amar Rabbi Yehuda Andrigonus Zacharhu. Okay, remember it was Rav Yehuda who said that performance of the Brit Milah on the Andrigonus, on the hermaphrodite, was acceptable to be done to be Doche Shabbat, okay, which was not the view of Tanakama. Okay? But now, Rav Chisda, Rav Shizbi in the name of Rav Chisda, says, not in all cases did Rabbi Yehuda consider a hermaphrodite of the male gender. She'ima to Omer came, ba'arachin ya'aroch. Because if that's the case, then if one were to have such a person make a erech vow, right, to vow their personal valuation, to give a donation to the Beis Hamikdash, and theoretically remember that of males was higher than that of females. Minalan de lo me'arach. And how do we know that he's not subject to valuation and would have to pay the higher price? The Tanya, because a Braita teaches ha-zachar, that it has to be the pasuk, and your estimation shall be of a male from 20 years of age. Velo tumtum va'androgynous, and not somebody who is considered either a tumtum, that has whose organs are covered, and therefore you don't know their gender, okay, or androgynous, or somebody who is hermaphrodite. Echol lo yehe be'erech ish. One might have thought that it would be possible to say, maybe we should evaluate an erech vow according to a man. Aval yehe be'erech isha. If not that, then at least let's evaluate it on the level of a woman. Talmud lomar ha-zachar. The text therefore says, right, ha-zachar ve'im nekevahi. Okay, the male, and if it is a female. Zachar vadai. From this we learn that it's got to clearly be certainly a male. Nekeva vadait. It's got to be certainly a female. Velo tumtum va'androgynous, and not somebody who is a tumtum or androgynous.
Good morning. How you doing?
Okay. All right. We're going to go a little bit more onto the next Amud, as I said, because it's long, and we'll go just up to the Mishnah. Okay? Ustam Sifra, Rabbi Yehuda. And we say that an anonymous statement in regards to the Sifra is always attributed to Rabbi Yehuda, right? And Rashi has a worthwhile comment there. Okay, Stam Sifrahu, the B'Torah Kohanim, Tanya La, Stam Sifra Rabbi Yehuda, right? Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Anan Nami Tanina. He said, so we also learned, okay, that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't consider a hermaphrodite to always be a male, based on the following. Hakol ksherim lekadesh. All are viable. All are eligible to range the water, okay, of the for a parad, right, for the service, for the ceremony of the waters of purification. Chutz mi chashav, chutz mi cheresh shoteh v'katan. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan. Rabbi Yehuda would permit it to be done by a minor, who posel be'isha v'androgynous, but he would render it invalid if done by a woman or by a hermaphrodite. Shmamina. From this we can learn it, and indeed that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't always consider a hermaphrodite as a male gender. Umay shnamila, asks the Gemara, valid question. So what makes circumcision so different then? Mishum diktiv, because it's written, Himo lachem kol zachar. Because there's another pasuk, okay, in regarding circumcision, okay, that by saying kol, okay, we include, we broaden it, right? Okay, the meaning of maleness, if you will. Every male among you shall be circumcised, all that may have maleness. And since the possibility that there is some maleness in terms of hermaphrodite, that's why Rabbi Yehuda holds the way he does. Okay, and we'll stop right there today, and we'll pick up tomorrow with that Mishnah. As I said, the Mishnah is going to continue basically with another situation of circumcision. All right, I don't know if you've ever been to a circumcision where there are twins. Okay, all right, but this Mishnah reminds me of that, of a situation where I once went to where there were twin infants, male infants. Okay, and of course the joke was, too bad the Moel wasn't ambidextrous. Okay, he could do the two of them at the same time. Okay, all right, everybody have a good day and stay well, everybody.
Thank you very much. You too. Be well.
Thank you. All be well. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So long.
Have a good day.
Take care.
Oh, that's not how you leave.
Millions of Americans depend on